the man, the myth, the legend, Peter Schweizer himself. Hello, sir.
Hey, Preston. How you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm doing well. I have wanted to have this conversation since DOGE got busy because, Peter, anyone who follows the work you've done for all these many years with all the bestsellers know you saw this coming, right? You saw what DOGE is uncovering and the waste and the fraud and maybe even the corruption that we're going to learn about.
Yeah, I mean, what I liken it to, Preston, is, you go into a dark room and you're trying to find something and you're feeling your way around and it's there, right? You lift it up, okay, the weight is right. Yes, it feels exactly right. What's going on. What DOGE has basically done is turn on the lights and expose it in a way that we or no outsider really could because they have the ability, they, ultimately would have subpoena power to say, give us access to all your records. So, yeah, it's tremendously encouraging. The resistance that you're seeing is certainly not unexpected because you're talking about this sort of vast, maybe call it underground economy where you see, billions of dollars sloshing around. Not just for, some scam artist who's trying to get some Social Security money, but, for very connected people politically who have figured out a way to take, for example, government grants to nonprofits and turn it into huge profit centers for themselves and their family members personally.
What book started this journey for you?
It was a book I wrote called Throw Them All Out. Subtle title, right? And Throw Them All Out really looked at two things. It looked at insider trading on the stock market by members of Congress and executive branch officials. And the second thing it looked at is government grants and the shifts in legislation to benefit people. So that was kind of the beginning, and that really gave me a sense of how, when you look at a nonprofit organization, you think, okay, well, it's a nonprofit. They got to pay their people salaries, but it's not like people are building up a business. But then when you realize how you can structure it, you get, let's say you set up a nonprofit business for, green banking, for example, which is what Stacey Abrams did, and you get the federal government to transfer you $2 billion. Okay, you can't pay yourself an outrageous salary because you'll be called out for it. But here's what you can do, Preston. You can set up a series of LLCs, limited liability companies, and you can have the nonprofit hire those LLCs to handle marketing, to handle communications, to handle fundraising. And so, in effect, you have set up a series of businesses and you're using government grants to pay yourself or your family members. And that's really what you're seeing with a lot of these quote-unquote nonprofits. They're enormously profitable. You look at USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development. We found this in Clinton Cash, the book I wrote in 2015. There was a study done that said half the money that USAID spent on grants to help the people of Haiti after the earthquake. It was supposed to feed them and clothe them. More than half the money never left Washington, D.C. It went to consultants, it went to advisors, it went to all these very comfortable people that were getting paid big salaries and big consulting fees to, quote-unquote, advise on how you were supposed to feed the people of Haiti. So I think what's going on with DOGE is great. I think there is more to come. We're going to see more squealing, but that's okay because we got to bring this stuff to light.
New York Times bestseller, head of the Government Accountability Institute, but more important than all of that, our friend Peter Schweizer here this morning on the morning show. Peter, I saved a post by Lara Logan where she connects some dots reporting of Michael Schellenberger, and you mentioned USAID, and that there's even a money trail and connection between USAID and the CIA, and that it was behind the first impeachment trial of Trump. And it goes on, and there's a suggestion here that there needs to be an investigation of criminal charges against people involved in all of that, connecting back to this money being exposed. Would it surprise you for us to see criminal referrals?
I think there absolutely should be criminal referrals, and I hope they act on them. And here's why, Preston. I mean, the problem is, as we all know, money is fungible, right? You have a 17, 18-year-old kid, and they say, "Oh, can I borrow $50?" And you give them $50. Well, they could use that for just about anything, for something good or for something bad, for the intended purpose or for what they really want to do. And the problem with these government grants is nobody's really minding the store. And so it should not be surprising that, money is flowing to an entity that says they're going to use it for one thing. They, shift it through a couple of LLCs or a couple of other nonprofits, and it comes out the other end doing something else. And the problem is there are some legitimate, I would say it's pretty limited, but some pretty legitimate things that government grants can go to. Mm-hmm. The only way, Preston, you are going to deter people from manipulating the system is that people that have manipulated, engaged in illegal activity, of which this would be, go to jail and face the penalties. The only deterrent. If we know one thing about Washington, D.C., I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, communist, you know that in Washington, D.C., if you allow people to get away with something that's going to enrich themselves or advance their agenda and they don't pay any consequences for breaking the law, everybody's going to start doing it. So that's why you've got to put your foot down and deal with this, or it's just going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Let me read a tail end of her post here because it references you and the work you've done. Musk audit connects the dots into the Clinton Foundation receiving USAID funds. Clinton role of sale of uranium stockpiles to the Russians, U.S. tech companies' partnerships with Russia, setting up Moscow's version of Silicon Valley. And then all the FBI investigations into Clinton never came to fruit, despite a mountain of evidence documented by Peter Schweizer, the Government Accountability Institute, in his book, Clinton Cash. And it goes on to say Special Counsel Durham and his findings found that Deputy FBI Director McCabe restricted the FBI investigations into Hillary Clinton. Will we ever see that reopen, Peter?
Well, I hope so. I mean, look, you've got Kash Patel at FBI, you've got the Attorney General and Pam Bondi that you would think would not have political reasons for not doing so. And look, it's a similar thing with the Biden family. I mean, people say, Biden's not in office anymore. The Clintons are long gone. Let bygones be bygones. The problem is, again, if you allow people to engage in this and get away with it, it's going to be imitated. So we need to be doing this not because we need to, quote unquote, get the Bidens or get the Clintons, but because we have to ensure that this abuse is not going to continue. And the only way you're going to get that is by taking it seriously as a criminal matter. And I think certainly in the case of the Clintons, there's questions probably about some of the deals and statute of limitations. But on the other hand, there's some that there's no question there should be criminal referrals and they should be looking at ways in which potential prosecutions could take forward. I'm not a lawyer, but don't let the excuse be, oh, well, they're out of office, it's no big deal. That is just not going to cut it, and I don't think is healthy for our country.
China, we're seeing this back and forth on tariffs. We know that Biden's compromised with China, but he's kind of sort of out of the way. In your mind, does China have any cards to play in all of this, or as many suspect, really the cards are in the U.S. hands?
Yeah, the cards are in the U.S. hands, and I think if you look at many of the things that Trump is doing, they are geared precisely around dealing with the China threat and the China challenge. I mean, look at the Ukraine-Russia war. What's happened with the Ukraine-Russia war, in addition to the human tragedy, is it has pushed Russia into the camp with China and made them much closer than they have been really historically since the time of Stalin. By trying to unwind the Russia-Ukraine war, he is trying to pull Russia away from China to further isolate China. If you look at what's happening with the tariffs on Mexico and on China and Canada, a lot of it relates to the fentanyl trade. And as I laid out in my book, Blood Money, the Chinese control every link in the chain to the fentanyl poisoning that's happening in America. 100,000 people are dying every year. It's the leading cause of death for people under the age of 45. And it's not a drug addiction in the way we think of it. The people that are dying of fentanyl overdoses, don't even know they're taking fentanyl. It's a kid who, is studying for a test in college and takes what he thinks is an Adderall, and it's laced with fentanyl. So it's a form of warfare that China is engaging against the United States. So what Trump is doing with tariffs, and yes, it is a little bit chaotic, but what Trump is doing with tariffs is really isolating China. He's telling other countries, come and make a deal with us, and we are going to deal with China last. And this is what China fears the most. So I have been very encouraged in what I've been seeing with Trump on this. You have really, for the first time since Reagan, what I would call a grand strategy that's being employed against our major adversary. And he's using tools and weapons that are not going to lead to war. He's using tools and weapons that are going to make it difficult for China in terms of technology and the economy, which is really ultimately where their Achilles heel lies.
It looks significant to me when Australia took the overture from China and basically thumbed them off and said, get lost. China's efforts to try to find others to join them is meeting with crickets.
Yes, exactly. I mean, look, when it comes to dealing with China, the United States is kind of the older sibling. Other countries, they'll grouse about their older brother. They'll grouse about their older sister. But at the end of the day, they often take their lead. And when you had an administration under Joe Biden, but going back, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, all very accommodating towards China. The word of choice was, quote unquote, engagement. We're going to engage with China, which meant giving them access to our capital markets and technologies where they just got stronger and bigger and became a bigger threat. When you have the new older sibling, which is Donald Trump coming in and saying, no, what we want to do is isolate China because of what they're doing, the younger siblings might grouse about it a little bit, but they're definitely taking the lead. And Australia, I think, is a great example of that. You're even seeing it in the UK and in France and in Europe. China has clearly overplayed their hand. They think they're going to somehow do an end around with the European Union. The European Union knows at the end of the day what China wants to do is sell them goods. They do not want Europe to have broad access to their own markets. So they know it's a dead end, and then they know they need to do a deal with the United States.
Peter, tell those that are listening that may not know about it, that, like me, could use a fix of the intel that you and your team work on all the time about your podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. So our podcast is called The Drilldown. You can subscribe to it on any platforms.
You mean like the iHeartRadio app?
We need to have you do our ads, by the way. They're much better than anything we've ever come up with.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
It's really 25 minutes. It's not one of these podcasts that goes on for a long time. It's 25 minutes, and we pick a very particular subject to focus on, and it comes out once a week. And we really try to be ahead of the curve and give you information that you're not aware of. The one that we just did yesterday that's out is about Trump and what he's doing with regards to Harvard and higher education. And I think there's a lot of interesting facts so people are aware of what's really going on there. It's not just about the anti-Semitism and the things going on college campuses, although that's important. It's much more broad-reaching, and again, it's that follow that money model that we try to take in everything that we do.
Good stuff. The Drilldown, which can be found on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. That's fine. Peter,
Perfect.
Peter, thank you, as always, for the time. You're always very generous, and I appreciate it very much. Best to you.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
Peter Schweizer with me on the morning show with Preston Scott.